Well, so let's talk a little bit, because that's a really important concept about any esoteric idea, or the ideas where this all comes from a paradigm, right? It's the Chinese peeps all got together and figured this out, right? So that's all coming from inside Chinese brain a few hundred years ago, right?
Actually,
So,
it came before them.
Right.
This is Taoism, but Taoism came from shamanism, and
Right.
shamanism
from the
was
Wu,
everywhere around the world. It
Yeah.
wasn't a Chinese thing, it was
No.
everywhere. Every society had shamanism.
simultaneously.
Their secrets. Who thinks that the Catholic Church is a secret society? Who thinks that the government is a secret society? Right? Think about it. You gotta be in them to know.
Yeah, exactly.
I joined my first secret society when I was little, when I started doing martial arts. Right?
Ninjas?
No, just martial arts in general is from a secret society.
Right, that's
They
true.
don't teach you anything unless you're in their group.
You have to be initiated by belt also to get the secrets, right? You can be in the group and you still don't learn everything unless your belt rank goes up.
Right, and it's really about safety. Right? We don't want to teach you how to beat people up if you're a jerk. Right? The secret
So
society
before
is
you can
everywhere.
get your black belt, they have to figure out how big of a jerk you are to see if you can get it.
So everything is kind of like a secret society. Your family is a secret society. Your society is a secret
Not
society.
secret enough.
So the reason they pick on the Masons
Keep
so
those
much,
family
the Masons
secrets.
don't fight back.
Mm.
That's the reason they don't fight back. Try
'Cause the
picking on
Pope-
the government for a while. see
The
if
Pope
they
just
fight
beats
back.
the Masons up all the time. You know, not so much anymore, but back in the day.
Yeah,
What was that you found out? What was it that's right next to the St. Peter's Cathedral?
St. Paul's Cathedral
Was it St. Paul's or St. Peter's?
in England? It's
The first Mason Lodge is next
yeah,
to
the
St.
first
Paul's
Masonic Lodge
Cathedral?
in England was right next to St. Paul's Cathedral.
Right, they were next door. All the priests would get off work and then go to Mason Lodge. Right?
Yeah, the Masons didn't care what religion you were.
Yeah.
They didn't think that was important.
Open to all
Is
religions.
it still there? Because I've actually been to St. Paul's, but
Yeah,
there's
Still
still
there.
there. I've
The
been
first
there.
Masonic. they were
Mhm.
1717 was. All right, let's get the ball rolling. Oh, no. Did you push that radio show on the thing?
I'll put it up there.
Anybody take a look at the Facebook thing when she posted the radio show where she interviewed me before? Yeah? This is part 2.
It's up there.
Am
Yeah.
I all shiny? Should I wear makeup and stuff?
Louder.
'Cause I'm so new, I'm shiny. Your show.
Hi guys.
Hi.
How are you guys doing tonight? Good. We're so privileged to be able to give you guys this presentation in the Masonic Lodge. Oscar's been kind enough to give us the space in order to do it here, which I feel is very apropos and important for the subjects that we'll be talking about. Mason lodges in general are known as safe havens for secret or esoteric or hidden information. So I can think of no better spot than to unravel some secrets than here this evening. So we'll be doing the interview with the dragon being Dr. Kelvin DeWolf. And Kelvin, do you want to talk a little bit about what you do and kind of your deal?
Well, what I do and what I did, and I used to have a place in Highland Park where I would teach people how to heal themselves. And after 3 years, I kind of just gave up on doing it because nobody that from that area, maybe in Santa Monica it would have worked out pretty good, but nobody in Highland Park was really interested in doing the work necessary to heal themselves.
You had a couple of people. You saved a couple people's lives.
Well, not enough to make it like branches and going further and, you know, expanding. But yeah, we took care of other people. Because it's really easy, once you realize that it's easy to take care of yourself, but it requires a lot of hard work. And it's the hard work that people don't want to do, because why do the hard work if they can go to a place and get a pill to make them feel better? Instantly they'll feel better, as opposed to over time they'll feel better. But it's also kind of like a trap. So if I had a car that had a check engine light on it, and it said, you know, go to the mechanic and check this out, and the mechanic would cut the wire to the light and give me back my car and charge me $500. That's kind of like what Western medicine does. You go in, you have a thyroid problem, and they'll give you medicine that will replicate what your thyroid does. So your thyroid will slow down and stop making it because you have a feedback loop on how to make thyroid medicine, or in yourself, thyroid
It's the
hormone.
same for insulin with diabetics.
It's the same way with bodybuilders. You know, those bodybuilders that get really big because they jack up with testosterone, and the testicles just shrivel away, because they don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Then you see them when they're older, they're like these old shriveled up guys. Yeah, but it's much easier to get the quick fix than it is to get the result. And then you start doing it, and you meet people in their 80s when they don't really care anymore. They come to you, they got a shopping bag full of medications that they're on, and if they stop taking these medications, they'll die because their body's not making anything that they're supposed to be taking. Well, it's kind of crazy. So anyway, besides that, I also teach Qigong and martial arts. I've come up with a system. I've been doing martial arts for 36 years, and I realized, I first took martial arts because I wanted to learn all styles of martial arts, right? I was really interested in it. Then I realized that there were styles within styles. It was like a never-ending journey. And I met these guys in Oshawa, Canada, and they would grab me by the arm and send electricity through my arm and stuff, and I thought it was pretty cool.
Were they Chinese guys or white
Chinese
guys? Chinese guys.
These old Chinese guys, and they would run up to a tree and they'd jump off a tree and do a backflip and land in the splits, and they're like 80 years old. I'm like, I want to be like these guys when I get old, right? And they told me that I would never understand the martial arts until I learned the medical part of it. You got to learn the yin with the yang. You got to learn the destruction part and the healing part. Otherwise, you'll just be a follower. You'll never understand it. So years later, I decided to learn the Chinese medical part. And then
That's how we met. I met Kelvin at Dongguk Royal University, where we were both studying Chinese medicine at the time.
Was this back when you were the Red Witch of Los Angeles?
Yes, my hair was different. And then exactly 10 years later, I went into your martial arts studio. And then we also found out that we were both born in Ottawa. He was born in the same hospital that I was. I know, trippy.
It is trippy. Anyway, what I teach people is to try to create another one of yourself inside of yourself, to grow it out and become you. And then as you do that, you create another one, and you grow it out, and it becomes you. So you create a light body of yourself living inside of yourself, who is immortal. So the trick, hopefully, eventually, is to become that one.
So hopefully this evening you'll be able to garner any information that we can provide you and take it yourself and work with it from there. You know, we both encourage you, whatever you learn tonight, please extrapolate upon and put into practice, put into use, because that's what it's for. Okay.
And the cool thing is that I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I crossed my eyes. Didn't mean to. I was just trying to. I was looking in the mirror trying to do this exercise I do, but my eyes crossed, and I heard a big popping sound in the back of my head, and I thought I gave myself a stroke. Because my eyes crossed, and when your eyes cross all the way in, you really can't see out anymore. So I was really inside of a tunnel, way far inside my brain. There was a big popping sound, and my eyes popped back out again. And this is 11 o'clock at night, and when this happened, there was no longer any darkness. There weren't any shadows. I couldn't see shadows anymore. I couldn't tell if the light was coming off me or things had light coming out of them, but wherever I looked, I couldn't find a shadow. It was like somebody took the roof off the building and it was like lit up everywhere. I looked in the mirror, I didn't see any blood coming out of my nose, so I figured, I'm okay. And then I realized that there was two things kind of floating in the middle of the air. They were like translucent, kind of yellow, opaque, with dust in them. So the dust got trapped inside this, like a little mini time warp. Like I don't know what happened, but I kind of popped between the barrier of reality. And when I did that, I just went and I held my breath. I don't know, I just did this. I held my breath for as long as I could. And I did it again as long as I could. And then when I did it my third time, I went, whoop, and this went, and I floated up in the air. And when I raised above the floor, I raised above the darkness of a reality. And when I saw the darkness of the reality underneath me, I saw my spot, where I was in before, as empty. And there was like a whole bunch of...
Like your body?
No, no.
Or the space?
The space.
The space.
I'll show you. It was like this. There's a whole bunch of them. There's like everywhere. It wasn't just me. Everybody had their
Like
little
compartments.
spots. Little compartments everywhere. It was like rectangular honeycombs. So this is my spot here. It was empty. And this is a wall coming up this way. And I saw these things going this way, things going this way, things going this way, things going this way, but they're going up the wall, down the wall, across the floor, up the wall, down the wall, across the floor. And they were like little yellow suns on the black surface. My spot was empty. There's people in their spots.
Do you guys see the Matrix? Where everybody, when he like pops out of his cubicle? Like that, right?
It was like that, but it was horizontal.
Right.
And it was flowing through it. So when I popped out, so I'll draw it this way. Right here. When I popped out this way, everybody's in a little box. And as they rose up, this little box thing disappeared and became a flat floor. And I couldn't see people inside them anymore. It became like this. And I rose up a little higher, and there was clouds. I went through these clouds, and I rose up a little higher, and I went to this place. There's a whole bunch of buildings, and they're all made of gold. And when I saw that, I said, holy crap, I'm dead. Right? And I went, as soon as I said that, I went whoom, back down again, like, I hurt my shoulder, had a big bruise, and I said, let's not do that again until I figure out what the hell's going on.
So what were the golden sun things that you saw swirling around everything?
I think that was the universe.
The universe?
We kind of rose above the universe. Right? We live in a galaxy that's spinning around, so it's denser than the area outside of it. So if I take, for example, this bunch of air that's right here and we spin it around, it's denser than the air that's here. And everything that's in here now is smaller. So if you spin it really, really fast and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, that's like us. If we unspin it, we get bigger. So I just got bigger and grew out of my thing. Just how a bee would be in a honeycomb when it's a little baby bee being made, then it matures and it gets bigger and it grows up and flies away. Really just as simple as that. It's a different level of reality. But I was above the suns and the stars. It was kind of cool. And I can show you how to do it.
Well, which brings us
I'm
to...
taking people with me next time.
And when we looked at some of the etymologies for the word dragon, one of the things that came up was it comes from this word called darekshtai, or so, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's like...
We're high tech.
I know. Which actually means to see or vision. And then there's a thing, they call it a dragon's eye, which is like a geometrical configuration, right? Which is really like a pyramid.
But three-sided,
right, exactly. It's a little bit different. And that it has this idea of seeing through things, right? Or something to that effect.
Past the barrier.
Right, you can see through the veil, right? So why do you feel like people have their ideas of what a dragon is as opposed to the like kind of reality of what a dragon is?
Well, if you really think about things, everybody just parrots back what they're told. There's not that many new thoughts. I have a conversation with people, I'm on Facebook, and I talk to people on Facebook, and I just hear the same stuff over and over and over again. I'm like, you don't have your own opinion on this? On this reality, so it has a dark side here, and a light side here, and it tries to get back here, and this tries to get back here, and as it does it, it starts to spin, creating this kind of configuration, which is that. And this thing divides off, and it has a white part and a dark part, and it has another one of these, a white part, and a white part and a dark part, but opposites. A dark here and a dark here. And these divide off and they form what's called the 5 phases. So this is like noon, evening, midnight, and morning. These are the same, but opposite. One's flipped upside down. It's like when you have, say this is a planet. This is a nice little planet here. So if she's a sun, I'm this way and it's summertime. I'm this way and it's wintertime. So that would be this one,
Right.
and this would be this one.
It just
So
flips.
right here in the middle, where you have the equinoxes, they're the same for that 1 second. But it's going one way and it's going the other way, so it gets the impression of being different. As it goes towards her, things start growing. As it goes away from her, things start falling apart. That 1 split second, they're exactly the same. So you have this part in the middle here, which is the same thing. And you have the 5 phases. And the 5 phases get together and they create this level of everything in our reality. And this level here is everything out of our reality. These are things that we can see, these are things we can't see. They're still there, just that we can't perceive them.
It's kind of like how you can't see ultraviolet colors, right?
Or dogs
But
can't see
bees
rainbows. Right?
There's always something that is the dragon that can break through the level, right?
Yeah, so when I do a course called The Way of the Dragon, where I teach you how to do it. It's really, really difficult. But think, for instance, how if you just use your left eye or you use your right eye, you have a nice two-dimensional reality. But no matter how great my left eye or my right eye is by itself, it's not even close to what both eyes make together. My right eye can't make a three-dimensional reality. I have to use both. So when you use your brain, you go between being left-brained and right-brained, and you become brained, you open up a new reality of perception, and you can see past this.
Because you make a
level
Wuji
of
in your
reality.
brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You become a dragon.
Make that.
Right. And it's like, she's done it, he's done it, she's done it. Anybody else here taking my course? She's done it. But it's not something where it's a belief system where I'm going to tell you about it and I'm going to sell you books about it. It's actually a tangible system where you can do it. But again, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to stay in this perception too, because being back in this society will pull you back out of it.
Well, so let's talk a little bit, because that's a really important concept about any esoteric idea, or the ideas where this all comes from a paradigm, right? It's the Chinese peeps all got together and figured this out, right? So that's all coming from inside Chinese brain a few hundred years ago, right?
Actually,
So-
it came before them.
Right.
This is Taoism, but Taoism came from shamanism, and
Right.
shamanism
From the
was
Wu.
everywhere around the world. It
Yeah.
wasn't a Chinese thing, it was
No.
everywhere. Every society had shamanism.
Simultaneously.
The word Gnosticism means the same word as shamanism. It means knowledge, it means knowing. It's something you know.
That's what witch means too. Yeah.
So if you know how to swim, right? If you know how to swim, how long would you suffer a conversation with somebody who doesn't know how to swim, telling you that swimming is impossible? Right? Think about it. It's kind of like, this is kind of why I shut my business down, because I'm getting to the point where you can't take care of it. I don't have time for you anymore. I'm sorry. I became a doctor, but I ended up being a babysitter. I can't stop eating bread. I don't want to get complaining. But anyway.
Well, so part of it is you said it's a difficult thing to do, right?
In this society.
One of the reasons is because of the boxes that everyone exists in, your paradigm that you're trapped inside. The difficulty to pop out is first you have to pop out of your paradigm. So do you want to talk a little bit about what a paradigm is?
Well, think about Native Americans a long time ago. They didn't have a religion that says somebody has to come and save you before you can do something. They didn't have all these belief systems. When the settlers came over, they said, "Who are you guys? What's your name?" They said, "We are the people." Almost every tribe said, "We are the people," or "We're human beings, that's our name." We're human beings, that's a tree, that's a wolf, that's a fox. So who are you guys? "Oh, we're British. We're French." "Oh, you guys aren't human beings?" "No, we're British," right? So once you break from being human to something less, you lose the powers of being human. So check this out. When you're born, you have an open slate. Here you are.
You're a zygote, which is a Wuji, right?
This is your destiny. Let's just give you an example. Say you want to be a basketball player. This is you as a kid, and you practice basketball, and these are all your opportunities to become a basketball player. You're getting smaller and smaller and smaller, until eventually you're 50 years old and you're not a basketball player. The chances of you becoming a basketball player at this point is pretty small, right? That's your paradigm. You're no longer going to be a basketball player. When you're born, you have things coming into your life. You have your mother, your father, your uncles and aunts and friends will orbit in, meet you, and they'll orbit back out again, they go away. And then you become a boy, or you become a girl. My tribe, they didn't differentiate until you got older. When you walked around as a kid, people couldn't tell if you were a boy or a girl, because you had long hair, you had the same clothes, you did the exact same stuff. That's a Native American guy. Boy or girl? No idea. It didn't matter, right? Because everybody had the same opportunities.
Which hermaphroditism is also a union of opposition, right?
This wasn't hermaphrodites.
No, but you're not separating by sex, yeah.
We just didn't care. It wasn't important. There's actually no word in our language for him or her. It doesn't exist. Crazy. We keep the paradigm open for them to be whatever they want to be. Here you get dresses and pink stuff and blue clothes and trucks and cars and stuff. Well, as you get older, you get segregated, you learn more, so you become a kid from this school or a kid from that school, and you're not him or he's not you. As you get older, you're a West Side versus the East Side, or you're a Republican versus a Democrat. And once you're in the paradigm, you really can't see the other person's perspective, because the other person's perspective is wrong.
It's antagonistic.
Right. Why would you even think of it? They're wrong. They're Democrats. Peace and love, communists, right? You don't think about them. So as soon as you are in a paradigm, you give up 50% of your reality. Then you give up another 50%. And as you get older, you keep giving up more and more of your reality by having a belief system or a religion system, right? That's a paradigm. So you really got to break past your paradigms and become not something outside of yourself, but something inside of yourself. You got to become human beings again. Human beings, right? Not American, not Mexican, not an immigrant. It's a really hard one to give up because it's a protection. You would do things differently back then. You would read the signs of nature, and nature would take care of you. You would read a sign, and the shamans would read a sign, or the chiefs would read a sign, and they would tell you, okay, this river is where the fish are going to come up. So you go to this river, and you put your weirs down, and you sit there for the next day, and the fish would come up, you catch enough fish for yourself, and then you would leave some for the bears, And then you would go to the next river. And there was a system of where to go, where the hunting ground would be the next year or the next fall, and different members of the different chiefs. So the main chief and the little chiefs were smaller groups, and this chief would take his bunch of people over here for their moose hunting or whatever. But it was like a divination kind of thing done by the shamans reading the signs of nature, as opposed to just killing everything that came around. You would try to do things to help nature. You wouldn't chop down all the healthy trees or the young trees. You would find the trees that were dying and chop those down, and you would make fires with those ones. And you would try to do things where you would think 7 generations in the future. Is this going to be harmful for everybody, or is it going to help everybody? And if it was harmful, you didn't do it. You just didn't. It didn't make sense. Then people came in with a different philosophy where everything was. They didn't think that far into the future. They thought of here and now. What can I do here and now?
So what is the paradigm of nature? So do you want to talk a little bit about the paradigm that everything kind of adheres to in nature?
I mean the 5 phases?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody knows about how when Venus and the Earth, they rotate and they kind of meet up every 1.6 years, and they form a pentagram in the sky. Everybody knows that one already?
Does everyone know where the pentagram comes from? It's actually not the devil.
But look, so you have the Earth and Venus and the Sun, and these guys orbit around the Sun. This is also where the Chinese astrology animals come from.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the Earth going around, and I'll just draw this to start, make it easier.
It's called a generating cycle.
So every 1.6 years, so this is 1.6, they line up again. One's going faster, and one's going slower. They line up again. So 1.6, they line up again, and 1.6, they line up again, and so on. And it's kind of like a big stirring pot. So you have the universe, or the galaxy spinning around like this, and then you have inside of it, in the system.
Where they can join. And do you guys know what the word is? Like, if that's the Earth and Venus and the Sun line up like that, they call it the occultation of Venus. Mm-hmm. That's where the word occult comes from, is from the pentagram, which is why the pentagram is used as an occult symbol. And occult means hidden behind. So this right here is the secret of the occult, right? And it's appropriately enough Venus, of course.
So, if that was just all you knew, who cares, right?
Yeah.
Right? But if you look at plants, see, this is a plant, its branches also pop out in the same pattern. So one branch will pop out, another branch will pop out, another branch will pop out in the same ratio. And you look at the tree, and you go up, and the branch goes out here, and a branch comes out here, and a branch comes out here and here. And this here becomes the same ratio. And the bones in your body become the same ratio. So if you look at your bones, your skeletal system, you have 1 to 1.6. 1 to 1.6.
You got 5 fingers, you got 5 toes.
Right? It's everywhere. If you look at everything, this isn't everything. Your DNA, as it spirals, comes along and it'd be a better marker. Well, the space between the 2 helixes, and there's a space, there's 2 helixes and there's space, it's the same 1 to 1.6 ratio. If you look at it this way under the electron microscope, it forms a pentagram. I'm not going to draw it, but it forms a pentagram, and then the next one forms an upside down pentagram.
Yeah, and it
the next
switches.
one upside down pentagram, and it just keeps going back and forth forever. So this is the ratio of our being, where these 2 little dragons kind of meet together, right? They're like little dragons. You have your dragons inside of you. So inside of you are little dragons, mini dragons.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do this. You have an opposing force going up with this force coming down. In the middle, so halfway in between, they will meet. This one will start going up and come over and start coming down like this. See how this works? If I could take a ball and I spin it, the ball's going to rotate. This is rotating this way. And it looks like this. So you get a line first, and as you spin it, the line looks like this. If you ever want to do it, take a paint can, take some paint, put it halfway on this can, and half another color on this can, and spin it. And it will make this before it mixes up.
You can use a pendulum too to do the same thing. Yeah.
It's obvious when you start doing it. Just like,
But that's also, like you said, the little dragons inside of us. How many of you guys study physics? Any physicists? You guys have heard of electron spin? The spin of all the electrons formulates the same pattern. And if any of you guys are familiar with quarks, you guys know what makes it an electron or a proton or a neutron is the direction of the spin. Is it going yin spin or is it going yang spin? Right? If it's yang spin, it's a proton. If it's yin spin, it's an electron. So all the little dragons follow that rule too.
big dragons, little dragons. So check this out. Remember the tree growing? So you have this kind of shape. So we have this barrier. Let's finish this first. So this is growth. I'm putting this here. This is the same thing. So this is growth, and this is decline. So you have birth here, where like a seed or an egg or you pop out of another dimension. And you come here, and you come to the point where you start growing even more. You come to the point where you start growing more until you reach a peak of your growth. And then you start declining, or you start shrinking, and then you die, and there's a space here which is outside of a reality, outside of our perception. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, it just means we can't perceive it. So this is, in Chinese, they call this wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And this is how you make this into the balance point. This balances the yin and the yang. So you have a balance between good and evil, a balance between up and down. And this opens up a doorway where you can get out of this reality. So in yourself, you have this. You have anger, passion, decision, indecision. You have grief or sadness. And you have fear as your emotions. And emotions are chemicals made by your hypothalamus. They're called neuropeptides. And they go into your cells. Say this is a cell. They go into your cells and they make that cell change itself.
Did you guys all know that when you feel a feeling, like you feel it, that there's actually a chemical being released in your body?
And if they shoot the chemical into you, you'll feel it again.
Yeah.
When you get acupuncture and you feel like that release of chemicals, that's the release of the chemicals from here coming back into your blood system again. So you feel emotions, but they're not real.
That's why people take drugs.
To feel.
To mimic emotional responses, right? That's why people get like addicted to heroin and stuff. Yeah.
So I don't like to call them feelings, I like to call them emotions. Feelings I think are natural, emotions are not natural. So what happens is you have an emotion coming in here and it keys in this hole, but when it does that, it also blocks the hole. So the hole before would either take nutrients in, or it would be pushing nutrients out, or it would be pushing product out, like protein. So when you block all these holes, you get less nutrients and you get more waste product. And so whatever this cell is supposed to make, say protein, it becomes a less product. So your protein or your collagen it makes becomes weaker or brittle. So this is what the aging process is. Right? No, kind of crazy. So there's a way to balance these things. So if you have this thing going on, you have too much anger, you can balance it with pride. So the good emotion that counts with it. If you have too much overthinking, you can balance it with anger. So, but you can make yourself angry. Don't let the emotions take you over. You can create your own anger. You can create your own grief or sadness, but you're not.
That's what actors do.
Right. But you're not letting it take you over, you're taking it over. You are not jumping on a wild horse, you're training the horse and using it as a tool. You're not bringing a wild wolf into your house, you're training the wolf to become a dog. So it works for you. So your emotions are your tools at this point.
Music does that really good too. You don't even, if you guys think you can't do it, Justin Bieber can do it to you, right? So if Justin Bieber can make you feel an emotion, you guys think you can make yourself do it on the spot? If you're stronger than Justin Bieber, you totally can't, right?
If you believe it.
If you Bieber it. He's Canadian too.
Don't blame me for that. So wait, back to this system. So you have patterns in nature everywhere. Once you recognize these patterns in nature, you'll start seeing them. And it'll drive you crazy after a while. So you have things that grow up, like so. Right? Basic pattern of nature. Look at the person's face next to you, or beside you, and try to find that pattern of nature.
You see it?
So I'm going to have, this is like the upper lip, right? Then a nostril. Then an eyelid, and an eyebrow. Then the part of your forehead where the hair meets. And you have this kind of pattern, and it comes down to your ears, where it goes back into your body again.
What else does that look like to you guys?
A goat's horn, maybe?
Bird wings.
Bird wings?
It's a fractal. You guys have you guys ever made fractals back in the day? They had those programs where you could enter the equation and it would start going and then it would just iterate it, and then you'd have the total fractal, right? That's a fractal, which runs by iterating or repetition of the paradigm.
Right. So, if you're out of balance, you will go to one direction. You'll be right-brained, or you go left-brained. Remember, your top of your brain goes like this too, right? Bloop, bloop. There's a space in the middle.
Your butt brain.
Right? Butt brain. So the goal, say this is a face, the goal is to get everything balanced in the middle, and that's where your third eye is, in the middle. And if you're too far this way, you're not going to activate it. If you're too far this way, you're not going to activate it. You're going to be exactly in the middle. So your paradigm can't pull you off to one side. There's no Native American saying this is, which direction does a tree fall in the woods? Anybody know the answer? Which direction does a tree fall in the woods?
Straight up.
It falls the direction it leans.
Mm.
Right? It's that simple. So the Japanese invented a thing, or actually the Shaolin monks invented a thing, and they gave it to the Japanese, called koans. You guys know what koans are? Right? So we've got a pretty smart group here. So a koan is something that takes you back and forth in your mind. This is, well, maybe because of this, or maybe no, this. And you keep doing this over and over again, and you start to find the middle part of your mind. And it takes you up into the center part. So there's thousands of koans.
Same with debate too. Like the theory for having a debate is you go on both sides and eventually you meet in the middle. That used to be why they have had debates, right? Was to find the truth.
Right.
And if you debate something long enough with two opposing sides, you should reach the center, which is the truth.
If you have an open mind.
Right.
Right? If you don't have an open mind, you will never reach the center because you have a reason to be on your side and not on that side. Then again, you cause a leaning in the woods. You cause an aging process.
Yes, you can think about which ways you lean, right? And pay attention to those, and then you counter them, right? With the 5 phases. So you can go the other way. So if this paradigm is everywhere in nature, this is the nature paradigm.
This is the dark box.
Right.
Outside of the dark box is a different paradigm, but we can't see it because we're not smart enough to see it yet. think of this reality. We have water, and you have dense water. Remember those animals at the bottom of the ocean, like evil animals and big fangs and stuff. You have not so dense water, where the squids and things live, and you have not so dense water. In the very top, you have thinner water. But at the very bottom, you have things that crawl along the bottom. You have things that kind of swim along the bottom, like a flounder. Then as it gets braver, it takes a jump. So you get things that kind of jump along the bottom. And things that jump and they get brave and they start going like this and they come off the bottom. Eventually they become like a little manta ray, and the manta ray is flying along. Then the manta ray turns into a shark and it floats along. And that turns into something else that does this along. So it comes out, back in. This is a dragon.
It's a wave.
Right? It's a frequency. These are all frequencies that are there way before the animal is there. The animal is just living on that frequency. So we pop up here, and then you have snakes that crawl on the bottom. You have things that walk along the bottom, like dogs and crabs or whatever. And you have things that fly along the bottom. But we don't see the ones above the things that fly along the bottom, because they're outside of a paradigm. But they're there.
Because the energy exists, you just have to hop on it, right? So it's more universal energy, less of your energy, like surfing.
It's like surfing. The surf comes in all by itself. You don't have to make it come in. You just kind of hop on your board and take a ride with it.
Mm-hmm.
These animals are taking a ride with these waves that are coming in already.
So then, the other thing that's really cool is with this paradigm, this the way everything operates, you think, well, why doesn't everybody know this stuff and like use it, right? And you can see it in all the esoteric kind of material, right? If you look at Egyptian material, just as an example, obviously if you go in the shamanic native cultures, they talk about it too. But do you want to talk a little bit about like the symbolism of the pyramid and how that talks about this paradigm or tries to convey it?
What do you mean?
Like how
Where are you going with this question?
humanity will use this paradigm for different things, like surfing, right? How do you use it? So there's a paradigm there. So what are the mechanisms for usage? And how did the kind of...
I can give you my personal answer, but I really don't have an answer. I believe that there's things that live inside of ancient rocks, ancient stones called Manitou. And they live inside them and they can also come out of them. So when you do a smoke lodge, you take a bunch of ancient rocks, you don't take the sediment rocks, you take ancient rocks, and you heat them up, and that expands them out. And then you breathe them in with the steam, and they will go into your paradigm inside your body and heal you. So the pyramid is just a giant, huge Manitou factory. And inside this box in the middle, they used to take people like Pythagoras and put him in the box and overnight, and he would be changed, and he would know everything after he did this because he had an ancient animal living in a coexistence with them. Right? And a Manitou is this. The Manitou, if it's direct translation, means a horned seal. So it's got like a slug's body,
There's pictures
like
of them.
this, and it has
We found a whole bunch of them.
horns. That's a Manitou.
Yeah.
If you go look at any Egyptian hieroglyphics after a while, you will see these things everywhere. They're everywhere. They call them,
Viper.
but not vipers as we
Right.
know vipers, but vipers more like a horn. So, you guys know what a slug is, right? A slug has the same body and it has these little things that stick out. That's like a Manitou. But if I divide the Manitou like this into separate identities, you can also look at it as a elk family or a deer family. You have the first guy, the big guy with the horns, the guy in charge, the alpha. And then you have all these, like the female ones and the smaller ones, and they have little kids in the back. That's a Manitou. And they go through the woods and just like the same thing. Just because they have spaces in between does not mean they're all connected.
It's a wave.
It's a wave. It's a frequency. It's already there. So in your body, you can start creating this stuff yourself. by trying to tap onto these frequencies. And you do this with Qigong or dance. Types of dance is the same thing. You get patterns that keep building onto each other, and they change your body. They change your physical body. The Manitus come from the space where duality does not exist. They come from infinity. Oh, sorry, past infinity. So think of infinity as a Mobius strip. You guys know what a Mobius strip is? I'll make a Mobius strip right now. Take a piece of paper, and you divide it and you turn it so that it folds on it. You make it all draw.
So you just turn it.
So if I'm taking this Mobius strip and I draw on it, I'm on this plane here. So I want to go towards infinity. I'm just going to keep going forever. Just keep going. You should have planned this ahead.
We should have had all
You
our
guys
props
can, you guys can
adjusted.
go home and make your own Mobius strip and do this yourself. But eventually, I will come back to where I started. And start over, because by the time I get to where I started, it's changed. Because takes time.
Because all this time and space have now passed between the point where you first started.
So this is time and space, right here, in this little infinity loop. This is this thing. Right? It's a Mobius strip. So we live on one of these things. What if I take this and I go like this?
It doesn't matter how you put it,
And
but
this
you just
and
want to
this.
find out why not. Why not you can't take it.
Am I not making any sense, Oscar? Do you not recognize that symbol, Jesse?
Yeah, I do.
We can't talk about it. You want to just have fun? Check this out. What's the 11th letter in the alphabet?
Any nerds?
Oh,
What?
okay.
So what's L, or not L, K? What's 11 plus 11 plus 11?
32.
32. So, check this out. You wanted to go there, Jesse. So you have this thing. You have darkness and light. These are, the beginning of it are 8-sided. So you have yang up top,
Bagua.
yin at the bottom. It's called the bagua. It's also, if you take a frequency of C sharp, you blast it into,
An octave, right? Yeah.
it's the beginning of the sounds. It's the creating sound, C sharp. Well, you have a 2-dimensional, which is 8, and you have to make it another 8 again to make it fit into a sphere, so 3-dimensional. So it's actually 64 of these things, right? So above here, you have 32, and down here, you have another 32. And if you pop up, that's a 33rd one into the light. You take a K, we can draw this, you have a K, another K, another K. Actually, let me draw the triangle first. Loop, loop, loop. K. K. So this is K, K, and K. Okay. And that's one of the symbols for the 33rd degree. So it's everywhere if you know what to look for. It's also, if you do another way, it becomes a teepee. But I'll just sit down with a pencil and do it. Right? You have another K there. You have another K here, here. K, and here. So TP, symbol for the 35th degree, KKK. So I think KKK's been bastardized too. I think all these things have been bastardized to
Yeah.
become controlling by people who had no idea what they were talking
But
about.
they ride the Manitou to get the power off of it. You guys see? If you know the Manitou, you can hop on and use the power over people that don't know the Manitou. Right? Works really good. In Egyptian, so for GOD, they always have the Manitou over it. They have this thing called the was, right? Then you have Ankh. Then you have the Jed. Right, and then he's hanging out on the top. Those together formulate.
This is a symbol for fear in my chart.
It's right? This is the Jed. There's 4, right?
Yeah, 4 for fear.
If you guys look at the crossier that the Pope holds,
She's got
that's
it.
the crossier, right? It's Osiris's spinal cord.
Well, check this
Egypt.
out. You have, we should sing this thing.
I know.
You have a cross, right? And my tribe uses it to explain, this is called the powers of night and the powers of day. When you balance them, you get up. This is also the golden ratio. If I take this cross and I fold it up, it becomes a box,
You can make a shape out
a
of it.
cube,
Yeah.
4th dimensional thing. You can enter the next dimension.
And that's, you guys see like a lot of there's the eye in the sky with the pyramid, right? And then how do you go from spirit? Matter is 4, right? It has to materialize. It goes from here down into matter. That's like all over Madame Blavatsky's stuff. If any of you guys are familiar with Theosophy or any of those occult teachings, it's all from triangle into square, which is what the cross symbolizes, right? The cross is the transition from spirit into matter. That's the secret of Jesus, right? You use the cross to go from triangle to square.
It's really funny how this is everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
And what is the Kabbalah teachings is the tree of life, right? Which looks like a jed with a bunch of, like, in a diamond, right? It's the same thing.
Crazy.
And what are all of those systems? They're religious systems that do what? Enable you to access the G, right? It's techniques.
Or
that
keep you from access.
Or keep you from accessing the G. Say, we know the G-O-D, but you don't know the G-O-D.
I read this one quote, I forget what book it came from, maybe the book of James or something, where Jesus said, the Pharisees are like dogs guarding a bowl of food. They don't eat it themselves, but they won't let anybody else eat from the bowl. And check out this, you have a wigwam. This is a wigwam. This is a fire pit over here. People come in, not everybody get it, some people get it. I can't talk too much about it.
Secret.
People come in,
Illegal. Is it really illegal?
totally. They walk around the wigwam, and they would hit a stone, and they would go in, forming a letter. Then they would go in and it would become inside this lodge. So someone get that, but just leave it for you guys who get it. Can't talk about it anymore about it. Shh. Don't think about it. Stop thinking about it. Think about this now. So this is the logos, and this is the border. This is women, this is men. So men, in my theory, do not exist by themselves, because men do not give birth to women. Women give birth to men. So if you look at it on a bigger scale, women are the plants, and men are but the flower that rises out of the plants. Right? So women...
An appendage.
An appendage. Men have a cervix that grows up. They have ovaries that come up. That's all. That's the difference.
It's yang, so it gets
Right.
expressed.
So,
Yeah.
talk about those fish that do that.
The anglerfish, right? You guys all, the scary fish you were just talking about, like with the teeth? You guys know that all those big pictures of anglerfish you see are female anglers? You guys know what the men look like? They're little testicles that attach parasitically onto the female, and that's their entire existence. They spend their life going through the dark sea looking for one of those freaky looking ladies, and then they adhere to the woman with their mouth, and the skin of their mouth merges into her flesh, and they become like an appendage on her.
Or with the fish that become male when there's no males around.
Oh yeah, this is happening in the Great Lakes and also all over Florida too, and places where there's chemical companies because people dump xenoestrogens in the water. It's called chimerism.
It happens without that. It happens
Yeah.
in nature too.
It
It
does.
happens with reptiles based on temperature.
Yes. So if there's a population which is mostly female, one of them will be like, okay, we need a guy.
So they take the butch female.
Yeah, they take the butchiest chick, and then she becomes a man.
It happens with
Chimerism.
human beings.
Yeah.
When you are a zygote, you're all female.
Mm-hmm. We have this, right? Right?
You're all female, and then the males grow out of being female.
Right. One drops.
But really, it's just a drop female.
Mm-hmm.
We get caught up in this male versus female crap, and that's really keeps you in the duality even better. It makes you more stuck in duality. So you got to get past all this stuff that we've all been trained to do for all of our society if you want to get out. If you want to stay in, fine. It's not for everybody. But you have to get past it.
And in a lot of shamanic cultures, they would actually have a practice where they would have to live as the opposite sex for a few years. Like in Tantricism in India, like Ramakrishna, do any of you guys know Ramakrishna? That's the Vedanta Society in Los Angeles, is formulated after his teachings. He lived as a woman, as a man's wife, for like years.
I don't think you have to go that far.
So, but it's in order to experience directly your opposing force.
Well, in traditional shamanism, you actually have to live in the woods
Yeah.
and start seeing these patterns.
See the paradigm.
Where you have to see it. You have to see it, and you have to see past it. You have to be by yourself for a year. Otherwise, you'll just be stuck in whatever paradigm everybody else is stuck
Or
in.
under influences.
Or you can just take the shortcut. You can take ayahuasca or magic mushrooms or acacia or salvia divinorum, and that will just pop you out all by itself. But there's a way to do it. You can't just go and do it, because if you just do it all by yourself, you'll end up in a very, very frightful place. Seriously, you'll go insane.
It's like people who take LSD and then have a bad trip. What happens when you take psychedelics, right, and it doesn't go well? You guys have all known someone that happened to, right? It becomes paranoia, like schizophrenia.
Fear.
It's fear, right?
Yeah, because you meet the dragon, you meet the barrier to the other side, and you become fear. So you have to be able to go through the fear to break a duality. You have to be courageous and afraid at the same time, which is called the path of the warrior in the shamanic society. So you have the hunter level, which teaches you how to move in stillness. And you have the warrior level, which teaches you how to be brave under no matter what conditions you are. Then you have the shaman level and the chief level. Then eventually you get what's called the sorcerer level, where you can manipulate reality yourself. And that's the level where they try to kill everybody off. Who could do that? My tribe, right?
Wonder why.
So if you think of priests or what? They're magicians.
Yeah.
If you go to a church, it's a priest,
They perform rituals in front of everybody.
right? So they don't want competition because they need that money for themselves. I don't think the people who are in charge, this is my own pet peeve, I don't think the people who are in charge actually know what they're doing. I've been doing martial arts for a long time, and I've been studying a lot of different styles, and I'd meet people who were like the masters, and I'm talking to them and I'm saying, what's this for? What's this theory behind this? And their answer 100% of the time was, well, we do it this way because my instructor did it this way, and my master was this guy's student, and he was this guy's student, and this guy was famous. I'm like, just say you don't know. Come on, right? Say you don't.
They don't experience it for themselves.
So think a long time ago where we had people who knew how to do this stuff, and they left, and the people who didn't know how to do this stuff was like, oh, we're left over now. So what are we going to do? They're going to say, okay, they noticed that when the dog star came up in Egypt, within a week the Nile would flood, and all the land would get soil, and there'd be great crops. These guys in charge would say, well, if you guys want the Nile to flood, you better give us offerings, and they would have them slaughter animals, and they would have food, and it's going to flood anyway, but they convinced these guys that they did it, and they gave them stuff. So every year, they say, you guys want some more stuff? Well,
That's why the knowledge or gnosis or secret
or shamanism means knowledge.
or shamanism, that's why those things contain power. That's why people can use knowledge as power over you. Because if you don't know, if you don't know, then the person who does know can make you a slave so that you can get that commodity.
Except that if there really is a non-dual reality and that is where everything is stemming from, then everybody knows.
We all have it interiorized. It's about access,
Oh, look what
right?
it's where infinity lives,
Yes.
right?
Yes, anyone can get it. Absolutely. You don't have to be a certain thing to get it.
But imagine if you're a caterpillar trying to be a butterfly, but somebody said, for you to have any leaves, you have to go to work every day, to buy a car, to buy gas, to buy a house to live in. How many caterpillars are going to become a butterfly? They'll be exhausted. Think, oh my God, I can't never be a butterfly. So somebody convinced you that they own the land that the food grows on, and you have to pay them to get food. And in my system, in my tribe system, it was for everybody. It was meant for everybody. And nowadays, somebody killed off your ancestors and took the land and said it's theirs. That's the only reason they have this land, because they killed somebody to take it. All the kings killed people to take it. But they don't want you to kill them to take it back, because that's wrong. Even though they did the same thing to get it. So they have you convinced that they have all this stuff and you have to work for them to get it.
So nobody bothers thinking about this stuff anymore.
Too busy.
It's the result, right?
Especially nowadays with this fake banking system.
Right.
Who knows it's a fake banking system? Raise your hand. Please, everybody, raise your hand. We're not going to go into that. But say this. If a bank prints money, why do they need your taxes to pay them money if they print the freaking money in the first place? They need your taxes to keep you poor and enslaved in servitude. Serfdom. Serfdom the definition of serfdom is modified slavery. So we live in serfdom. We don't believe it. We think we're free, but try going places without money and see how free you really are.
So the mechanism for breaking out of all those societally imposed paradigms that we're all part of now is you need to jump on the man tube, right?
Yeah, I discovered there's another reality within our reality. And if we all go to this new reality, we can leave these MFers behind and they can till their own soil if they want to.
And so, like, what happens when there's only one person that breaks through that, right?
Well, one person breaks through, it opens a door.
Right.
If there's a locked house and one person opens the door, then everybody can go through. When Christopher Columbus came, he brought everybody else over. Before then, if you came over, you would get eaten by a giant turtle or you would fall off the edge of the earth. So nobody would go over.
Right.
It's the same thing with these other paradigms. You don't even think about them. And when you do talk about these two people, they're in total cognitive dissonance about it. No
Or they
way.
just think you're crazy.
Or crazy. Crazy works.
Or they burn you at the stake, right? That happens too.
Witch.
But no, it's true. So, like, for you, using your experience, you guys all heard Kelvin talk about what happened to him when he popped out. What you
A whole land of buildings made of gold.
Right.
The New Jerusalem, so to speak.
Which is what people have descriptions of this, right? So there's people that have done this. This is not like,
Yeah, this is
you
not
know.
just me.
Yeah.
I think Terrence McKinnon's brother did this one time on magic mushrooms, where he took a huge dose of magic mushrooms and climbed a tree, and he found this place. Because when you take magic mushrooms, the energy of the mushroom pushes off the darkness out of your body, so you can actually have the perception past duality. So we're in darkness. Darkness is not, in this reality, darkness is not lack of light. It's actually darkness. It's like a tar. So when I get this New Agers guy going, if you take a lighter in a dark room and you can chase out the darkness, try that, doing it out of a castle window. Try doing that, light up the night sky with it. We live in the dark side of the yin-yang symbol. And the sun is a little white dot in the little part of it. We live in darkness.
Which is true, like for physics, all you physicists out there, what is 90% of the material world?
Dark matter.
Dark matter. Yeah.
Just look at the sky at nighttime. Is it light or is it dark? Like little stars everywhere, but it's mostly darkness. So the trick is to bring that light down, and so we think of it like a blanket, like a covering. And we live below the covering of this tar blanket, dark matter thing. And whenever you're able to shake out this tar, you can come above it. And there's another way to do it. You can still be here, and you can make yourself really change your frequency, and you can shake out the darkness inside yourself. So you can make a little bubble around you where you can see in the dark. And that's part 3 of the Way of the Dragon.
Well, and so when you go to the light place where all the gold is, what you just said was that you can be in both places at once, right? Because that you fell down when you thought you were dead,
Right.
right? So the
I
idea,
brought fear into myself.
right? You want to try to do it without dying, right? Ideally, and if you look at,
if it makes you, what's the thing? Makes you stronger.
right, if it doesn't kill
If
you,
it doesn't kill you, it will make you stronger. But the trick is to not get killed
Right.
in this process.
which is a trick. And if you look at the people that have done it, do you guys know like all the stories of ascension when people go up to heaven? Okay, there's only a few people that get to do it without dying. Moses ascends to heaven. Enoch does it without dying, right? Muhammad does it without dying. Jesus dies. He dies. You guys know what happens when it's at the transfiguration when he turns into light? There's a very interesting thing that happens. Moses and Elijah appear next to him. And I always think it's funny because I think Moses is like laughing at Jesus because he's like, oh, you had to die to do it, huh? You did it wrong.
Well,
Right?
Anyway, I think these guys are jerks for not telling us how to do it.
I know. So people have done it. There's been ascensions that are described in great detail, you know. And in Enoch, it's a perfect example. What happens to him? His face all turns into light. Moses comes down off the mountain. He's shedding light out of every orifice. You see those pictures of him with horns and light coming out of the top, right?
The horns, right?
Yeah. He's got the Manitou horns. There's a very famous statue of Moses by Michelangelo. Have you guys seen those where he has his horns on his head?
Or Hathor.
Yeah, Hathor as
Isis.
well. They get horns and the light is coming out. So there's people that have done this, you know, and been able to retain their meat suit, right?
I really think this is a test, right? I think it's a test the way that insects have to pop out of their shell, the way that chickens have to pop out of. This is our shell. And we have to do it ourselves.
Well, in your tribe, were there stories of people that had succeeded?
No, everybody did it.
Right.
It was a normal thing. This is what you do. People would, everybody, it's like a system. You do this system, you become the hunter, the divination system, then you did the warrior system, and then you did this system, and then you get out. Right? It's just boom, 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 off you go.
Right.
Then they would stop doing it after a while. My tribe gave all this information to everybody that came over until they started killing them. Then they stopped talking about it. Then the next tribe didn't talk about it. Then the next tribe didn't talk about it. And eventually you had, the Native Americans wouldn't talk to you about this stuff at all.
Which is why we can talk about secret societies now. Like, why do societies become secret? Why do you guys think
Because of the
occult thing?
Inquisition.
Yeah, right?
Right?
Persecution. Why? Do you guys know what happened to the Freemasons? There was a papal bull issued that declared Freemasonry satanic. From the mouth of the Pope. What are you going to do against that, right? So, better keep this under wraps, right? Don't want to have to be satanic. Same thing with witches, right? They said all of a sudden, oh, they're satanic.
All the Indians were killed. It was like,
All Native Americans are murdered, you know? So that's why people keep this to themselves, because of persecution.
and this begs the question, why am I telling you about it? Right? The reason I'm telling you about it is that this is the first time in human history where we can actually have world peace. This is the first time that the world can communicate without going through the authorities. A long time ago, not even that long ago, if you want to talk to somebody in China, you had to go through the embassy. What are you doing? You're a commie. You want to commie some of that, right? You couldn't do it. Now you go, hey buddy, what you doing over there? Right? You want world peace? Sure, let's have world peace.
There's more communication.
Plus, we know what the world is. A long time ago, people would conquer the world, but their world was like this big. Like Genghis Khan, he goes, well, I conquered this, now what? Just keep going. And he meets the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire pays him off, not to conquer them. So they kind of stayed off there. But they didn't. What's he going to do, keep going? He's not going to make it to Australia on his horses. He's not going to make it across the ocean on his horses.
He meets the end of the world.
We need, the end of the world is now. The end of the world is we can all do this now because we can all communicate this stuff. So the time for secret societies is over. The time for people suppressing people is over. The parasite is what people are that suppress you. Say you're a peace-loving society. You are able to grow enough food for everybody. Everybody doesn't eat too much. Say, oh, peaceful, peaceful, peaceful. You take your swords and you make plows, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden something happens like the Ice Age. And these guys don't have any food. These guys become the evil people because they're starving and they come over and they take your food. And you're peaceful, so you can't defend yourself. So all of a sudden you are the slaves of these people.
Yeah.
Class, the warrior class, and then slave class of peaceful people. So it's time for peaceful people to become evil.
Well, but you only keep the evil to help other people.
Well, it's kind of like this. This is how this whole system, I'm reading in the room. So this is the parasitic society, like this, over top of the people, right? They have, because these guys make themselves stronger by keeping these people down, right? You can be strong by keeping people suppressed. You can have your roads built by making people do it. Make that pyramid. My system, or my tribe system, is that this is you, and you make yourself stronger. But you don't just make yourself stronger, you make yourself stronger for the sole purpose of making other people stronger. So your pyramid looks like this. It's the unfinished capstone that they talked about on the dollar bill.
They're also called pyramidiums, right? If you guys look that up.
You guys know that the Constitution came from the Iroquois Nation? We the people, right? People. Not we the guy with slaves, right? We the people. We're all the same. That's why you have the right to bear arms, because you have the right to defend yourself. Even though your arms were a stick with a rock attached to it. Ever look at pictures of Native Americans? They always had their spear, or bow and arrow, or their rifle.
On their
Always.
person, yeah.
Because what are you going to do? You're going to go in the woods and punch your bear in the nose? No, it's going to kill you.
So, for the system, I mean, there's techniques that you can employ in order to get the key to do the breakthrough, right?
Because infinity lives inside you. Right? You have this here.
Like the middle of a fractal.
So you have this and this. So if I go halfway, and halfway, and halfway, and halfway, and halfway, and halfway, and halfway. If I'm in the center line, not leaning one side or the other side, but exactly in the middle, I'm talking about you, exactly in the middle, you reach the way out into infinity, off the loop. Halfway between my eyes, between my nose, between here, where my third eye lives. Halfway, halfway. And you start doing exercises to find that spot. You take your consciousness and you move it back and forth inside your body. Like think about where you are right now. Which eye are you behind? Are you more in your left eye or are you more in your right eye? And then you can force yourself to go behind the other eye. Or listen to one side. Now you're over here. Listen to the other side. Now you're over here. And you just keep going back and forth until you're neither on your left side or the right side. You're in infinity. And when you find that spot, your body will start going like that. And you'll start vibrating, and that spot will open up. And these guys live in that spot. They live off the loop. You bring these guys inside of yourself. Inside of the 99.999% of you that's empty space. And you fill it up with light. You become a light being. You aren't light beings yet. You're dirt beings.
Because you're made of mud, right?
All these New Age people are like, we're all light beings, woo, peace and love, let's go dancing and drinking. No, you're not. We are grubs the same way caterpillars are not butterflies.
Right. You have to do the transformation to get it out from inside of you.
If you ever look how a caterpillar makes its web, it pushes out stuff out of its body. Mm-hmm. It makes the cocoon from pushing out the stuff that it doesn't need to be a butterfly anymore.
Do you guys know the word evolution? The word evolution, what it means? It's a spiral where something from the center comes to the outer part. Unfolds. Evolution isn't something comes from outside and then all of a sudden you're like this thing. It's already present endogenously and then is expressed, right? So all the potential for an evolution is already contained within, and then it gets outer expression.
So if you look at like the evolution the way it teaches us, how it just becomes a process, it doesn't work. Birds will never be able to fly that way. What's the bird going to do? It's going to jump off a cliff and evolve slowly into a bird? No, it's going to smash into the floor and die. Or not. Nobody's forcing you. This is not something I'm trying to force people. Like, this is not a belief system. When you start doing this, you'll start seeing what I'm talking about. And if you don't, then you won't. It's just that simple. It's not for everybody. Not every caterpillar gets out of the cocoon and becomes a butterfly. Not every caterpillar goes into the cocoon. The one with the strongest will to do it does. The one with the most intention. It's really about intention. If you don't have intention, you don't have direction of your mind, you won't be able to do it. If you have a mind that's not trained, you won't be able to do it. So part of this process is just training your mind, or the mind over your mind. The exercises I give you, so that when you do level 2, you have control of your mind. And level 2 is really a test to let me know if you're in control of your mind. Because you're not doing level 3 if your mind's not in control. Because you're just going to go crazy. Or you go violent. Sometimes in level 2, people will switch identities with themselves. You
go into your evil person.
You go into your own underworld. So check this out.
You go down.
You have a nose, and a mouth, and 2 eyeballs on top. Down below, you have an ovary or testicle. You have a little nose or a bigger nose. You have a other end of this cycle, a mouth, but it's going this direction. So it's the opposite of you. It's your evil. If you're a good person, this is your evil self under you. It's another consciousness.
Did you guys see on Facebook the picture I posted of Solomon's seal? Mm-hmm.
Well, take your tongue and just rub the part behind your front teeth, and it will swell up like a little clitoris. Feel the roof of your mouth. It feels like the inside of a vagina. You get the same ridges. It's the same thing, but it's looking downwards at the floor.
Flip it.
It's this way. So this vagina is your nose. There's a hole into your sinuses. Your anus is your mouth. It's actually the opposite. right? And your eyeballs are your ovaries or testes. And a long time ago, people say when women stopped ovulating, they got their power of sight from their ovaries. So women shouldn't fear not ovulating, they should embrace it because that's where their power comes from. It's just patterns in nature over and over and over again. And if you get caught up in less than all of it, you'll never be able to see it. Even in here, look, you got like a little clitoris, right?
It's fractals.
You got your labia, you got your hole in the middle. It gets kind of obvious after a while.
Like Tootsie Rolls. Whatever it is, I think. Right? And that's when you go kind of crazy. Because you see it everywhere, it's ridiculous.
Endless. It's
Yeah.
freaking endless.
You can see it in your shoe, you will see it in every particle of matter on the planet Earth.
And if you don't know how to do
Right.
it as a tool, what's the point? Because it's from the same place. So you get the little Big Bang thing and poof. So everything has to be related because everything came from this freaking same place. And then the way people say, we're all connected, blah, blah. Oh, so what? Get out of it. So what if you're all connected? Use it as a tool to go to the next level.
All the Messiah stories are what? Someone got out, comes back and says, hey, I figured something out, check it out. How did they go up on a ladder, they ascend, right? This is the Messianic story, is one who separates from the rest of the whole, returns in order to share and promulgate that information for the purpose of people performing it themselves, right? Not in a self-righteous action, but as an instructional.
Imagine if all the caterpillars are around waiting for the giant butterfly to come back and save them. How long would they have to wait? 4,000 years? 2,000 years? Probably, right? That's what we're doing. Nobody's coming back. Well,
He's in the pyramid.
I shouldn't say that, but the butterfly's not going to come back and talk to the caterpillars. He has a different consciousness now. Doesn't even eat the same food anymore. He eats flowers.
Yeah.
Juice from flowers. They can't even have a conversation with the caterpillar anymore. This is one of the dangers of doing this stuff, is that you get to the point where you get kind of arrogant. Because when you go through the barrier, you know everything.
You get Messiah complex.
Every freaking thing in the world. You have the answer to everything. You can talk to a NASA scientist and put him under the table because he knows nothing, because you know everything. But when you know everything, you kind of get really arrogant. So it's like, you got to be able to not do that. And you got to come back down and be normal again. But you got to watch out for things that try to trap you. You can't get involved with fake emotions.
So that's when you use the antidote, right? Compassion being the antidote
Right.
to arrogance.
It's making yourself strong to make everybody else strong. Then you're connected with everybody else. Right? Jesus had his disciples who knew what he was talking about. But they didn't share. Well, who knows? Maybe the world's changing.
So that's a pretty good place to stop, I think. You think? Or is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks you guys for coming. And if you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to contact either Kelvin or I. Kelvin's going to be doing the Way of the Dragon again. Do you know when you're going to do it? Or
It's not up to me. I'm giving up that seat. I'm teaching it, but I'm waiting for the students to want to do it.
Right.
Because I'm not going to I'm not going to impose it on anybody. You have to want to do it. You have to come to me and want to do it.
So if you want to do it, you can approach Kelvin about it. Thanks you guys.
Thank you.